What is going on, community? Whether you're in franchising or not, we're glad to have you. Today, we're going to get into selling, and I'm super pumped up about our discussion, which we'll introduce in a second. For those of you that don't know or are landing on this prior to May 21st, we are hosting a growth summit. If you go to the www.thegreatfranchisereturn.com, you can register for free. Charles and I are going to guide you through a 2-day workshop where we're going to work through a workbook. And hopefully on the other side of that, come out with some really good action steps, tangible action steps that you can take to win at franchise sales and franchise growth. I'm going to welcome in our guest, Steve. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, man. Excited.
And then Charles leaves, and then Charles comes back.
Sorry about that.
And Charles is my middle name, so that's a good sign as well. So
it's great. Charles is in the middle. Sometimes Charles is in charge, but today, not so much. Steve, would love for you to frame like what's going on in your life and in your business right now, especially like put into context on how things have changed, both positively and maybe turbulent for you during COVID.
Sure. I mean, the changes I think are evident for all of us in the business community. We've had so many shifts, pivots, adjustments, whatever you want to call it, with COVID, with us moving now to a more virtual world. And a lot of people in businesses, in franchising, again, I empathize with many of you, and I understand it's really difficult, especially if you're brick and mortar and your business has just been shut down. I really feel for you. And we have to do as much of a mindset job as we can right now, more than a physical sales, type of ideal. I think that so many companies are in this woe is me mode, and I understand and empathize with that, but we have to be in a learning mode. This is the off season, and many of you guys on listening right now are watching The Last Dance on ESPN. It's the single best sports documentary I've ever seen, probably top 5 documentaries of all time. And it's all about Michael Jordan, the Bulls, that championship mindset. And what I'm seeing, guys, is the people now that are in their off season, meaning the people that are in the gym shooting the 1,000 jumpers, lifting the weights in a business sense, the ones that are learning new skills, new processes, new mindsets are going to come out of this thing a champion. The ones that are living in the scarcity mindset, the woe is me, the Murphy's Law, oh, my whole life is over, they're the ones that are going to struggle coming out of this thing. So we need to look at this thing from an optimistic side, not necessarily positive side. They're two different things. Simon Sinek talks about this. It's really great. But yeah, okay, it's not great. We get that, guys. It's not great for any of us. But what I'm doing is really building up a lot of relationships, new connections, building the pipeline for business to come in third, fourth quarter, even 2021. So that's how, a lot has changed for myself and my clients. We were already a virtually based sales training company as it is. So I had kind of seen this thing coming, not the COVID thing, of course, but the teaching and training remotely, probably last year, we started kind of seeing the trend to more remote employees and more remote salespeople. So it's how you look at it, guys. Again, we all know the glass half full, glass half empty thing. I'm just happy I have a glass, and that's how I've always looked at it.
Steve, there's so many great points, right? And Walter Bond, when we spoke with him, made a great point also about this being the off season. And then
former athlete, he knows.
Yeah, I mean, just it's powerful stuff. I think it's like you're focused on mindsets. I think it's a smart mindset, right? And working off that mindset, there's so many people out there talking the sales talk and talking the positive mindset talk, but I feel like it's a layer for many.
Correct. Yeah, right? There's way more to it than that.
Right, and it's like, okay, and even if we're going to give them credit for practicing an off season and shooting the ball, right? But maybe the form is completely off. And so if our
100%.
form's off, we could practice all day.
100%.
So, Steve, I feel like the curtain has been lifted. Bullshit can be seen in broad daylight.
Yeah.
You know, sales legitimacy, authenticity is the new order, right? And you can't fake it on the other side. So
No.
where do you go with this mind shift? Where do we all like forget, you know, we all know we need to be practicing. If you're not practicing and looking at this as off season, you're making a big mistake. But more important than that, the skills we came into this with are outdated. They probably were
100%.
well outdated before this.
100%.
So how do we build up that skill set now? Sort of like Rocky when he had to retrain in Rocky 3 with Apollo.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right? So how do we do that?
So it's funny you said that, because that's literally everything we're doing now. And there's a lot of great trainers, a lot of great systems, a lot of great teachers out there. The problem is the stuff, and they're trying to teach it. They're trying to help, but it doesn't work in 2020. And that stuff didn't work, like you said, a year ago. It certainly doesn't work now. And the one tool that I think is just a complete game changer, the one we use, and Nick, we did Megan's sales DNA test yesterday. We have a tool called the sales DNA test, and it's actually been around for years and years, but most people don't know about it. And you've all heard of these assessment tools and DISCs and Myers-Briggs, PI, all these things, right? But there isn't ever one that I've ever seen that measures the salesperson inside the person. And coming from a guy who humbly was #1 in the country with Cutco knives, I made it to #1 in the country with Aflac, thousands and thousands of people. And I took the sales DNA test. I was floored. I wanted to jump off a bridge. I'm like, I'm just not that good. And if we don't know what our shortcomings are in terms of selling, right? Not sales in general, but selling this particular coffee cup in Poughkeepsie, New York. That's what we measure in these sales DNA tests. And we tell people all the things that have been holding them back. And it's competencies you never would even think of. We measure things like the need to be liked. We measure things like being comfortable with money. We measure things like being rejection proof. And if you don't know if, when, how you have those issues and to what degree, how the heck are you ever going to fix them? So we're doing, in essence, I guess, a lot of diagnosing right now. And once people know what their challenges are, now they actually have a roadmap to fix it. Like you said, we're teaching them the form of the jumper, elbow straight, right? Wrist cocked, right? We're teaching them that. So now they can go work on it. Whereas, like you said, most of the traditional sales training courses, all that stuff, it's just a random remedy. It's the doctor that recommends surgery to every patient. Again, you can't do the one size fits all stuff. So that's what I'm seeing, and people love it.
A few comments, and then the question for you, Steve. One is, we've heard about this off season. There's been various discussions about it, but I think it's important for our audience, whoever you are, to understand that there are athletes that return from off season overweight. And there were those that went into off season and they just didn't have the capabilities, period. So don't think like automatically, like, I'm going to go approach this off season differently than I did in the past. If you miss the fundamentals, you're going to come back and nothing's going to change. Second point, I agree with you on Last Dance. If you're not watching it, even if you're not a sports person, purely from the leadership mentality of Michael Jordan, it's interesting. Yeah. And now, if you watch what's happening to him as a human being, it is also fascinating that he put everything on the line. And the question now becomes, is he a lonely person? Was it worth it? So there's a lot of complexities as humans that's worth watching there. My question to you is, we have all these franchise brands, and they like to think, and I'm not going to apologize for the statement, it is what it is, that A plus B equals C, that I spend A, I sell C. And the reality is that if you turn it on the side and you look at all the layers of franchise development, you certainly need a great product and leadership, a cost to get in, how much I can make needs to be sound. I need to be able to open in the territory that I want. and your franchisees better validate. So there's table stakes. But now we get to the next layer. Let's say those are sound enough to now pull the lead in. But I think franchisors discount or disvalue the sales aspect of it. That now
all the time,
whether it's the qualifier or it's the head of sales, like if they don't have the right mindset and skills to believe in your brand, you've lost the opportunity, even if it was a great franchisee down the line. So for a brand that is now coming in their off season and saying, I better evaluate who my sales team is.
Oh, yeah.
Recommendations for how they look at that?
I think, I don't know why this popped up in my head, but I think in the franchise business, which is different than the other companies we work with, it would be the equivalent of somebody buying a medical practice, right? Because the medical practice will generate $3 million a year, but you've never gone to medical school and you think you're going to just buy the practice and perform surgeries. There's a huge missing step in there, and that's the ability to learn how to sell. And so that's the part of what we're able to help people with, is figure out, one, do you have the capabilities, the competencies, the mindsets, beliefs, behaviors, all that stuff? And two, now that we figure that out, how do we train, teach, and coach those folks to sell more effectively? And so I spent the last 18 months building up our back-end training. And what's cool about the training we deliver is, one, I did a modern day Napoleon Hill type of thing. Many of you guys have read Think and Grow Rich, but I interviewed tons of 6- and 7-figure salespeople in every aspect of every level of sales you can imagine in the country to find out what their best practices were today. Not 1990, not 2012, today. And so that's the stuff I teach. So I don't teach Steve Heroux's system. I teach what all these amazing men and women are doing across industries and businesses, how to follow up, how to call leads, right? How to make sure we're getting referrals, how to do the sales process. I mean, everything. And the other half of what we can help people with is the stuff we find out on the DNA test, we teach how to fix in the lessons. So that whole section, guys, is completely missing. And I work with several franchises and I've seen their training manuals and I'm like, where's the sales stuff? Like, you can't just teach me, here's a script and here's what to say when someone calls, right? There's so much more to it than that. And I think it's ironic that we can't build a business, a franchise, without sales. You have to sell stuff. It doesn't matter what you do. And if you're not equipped, you're not acclimated to being good in that realm, what exactly are you relying on? Because a great product will only take you so far.
And by the way, to Megan, Megan Allen out there, really appreciate the connection and the comments. And Megan put a comment about how your DNA test really was useful for her mindset, right?
Yeah.
So what are the mindset blocks, if you had to categorize them, that people run into?
I think one is if they've had, let's say they've had some level of success before, and I like to use this kind of like maybe in golf, a John Daly or a Bubba Watson who's won a couple majors, but they've never taken a golf lesson. They feel like, oh, I'm pretty good. I won a couple majors. But what if they actually took the time to work on the things that were holding them back? They would ascend to incredible levels. So I think that the mindset of I'm good is hurting people from becoming great. The second thing I think is that we equate sales to marketing, right? Which they are two different things. I remember working with a franchise that was in the top 5 out of, I think, 200 in terms of leads in. But in conversions, they were in the bottom 10%. And they just didn't think, oh, it's a sales issue. Like, so how good do you have to be, to convert the leads? That's what companies don't ask themselves. It's not about how many leads come in. It's how many can we convert? And that's a skill set and a mindset issue. So those two, I think, are prevalent in the franchise industry.
So stay on that one for a second. So in franchising,
Yeah.
If you're at a development conference, they're going to say, well, I get one deal per 100 leads. So you walk around that franchise conference and you say, there's 2 points there. Point one is you're proud of the fact that as a sales team, 99 people said no to you.
Yeah.
And secondly, that seems like you have something that is interesting to buyers because there were 99 other people. Now, are they financially qualified? Let's get rid of those. Let's say we narrow it down to 20 who are financially qualified. Now, in my opinion, what can we do better to facilitate the discussion to drive those people through the pipeline to make them feel comfortable with buying this brand? Yet, for whatever reason, we celebrate 99 failures in the sales process. Thoughts around that?
It happens in all industries, man. I work with a lot of people in the real estate industry, and I see people, I know brokers that spend $10,000 a month, right, on leads, and they spend $0 a month on sales training. It's backwards. Doesn't make any sense to me. I'd rather spend less money on leads, teach my people how to convert them more effectively, and generate more profit. Guys, that's why we're in business. We spend money to make money. And if we can spend less money and make more margin, why wouldn't we do that? But instead, 99% of companies just throw more money at leads, put another 10 grand into marketing, another 10 grand into marketing. They're spend 100, 200, 300 grand on marketing. They won't spend 10 grand or 20 grand on sales training. It's just backwards, right? It's not just the franchise industry, it's business wide, right? It's a major issue, man, major.
Something I struggle with, I mean, you said, Steve, too, it's not the best product that wins. And what I find even as a franchise law firm, as we drive down into our purpose and our value and what's the value of the product we're offering, right? All of a sudden, marketing doesn't become marketing anymore. It becomes systems, procedures, core values. That's where I feel like a lot of businesses are missing the mark, right? Because at a certain point, your marketing doesn't become superficial marketing. It merges with the core product, your core existence. So, like a lot of times I feel like that's why marketing runs flat, or that's why leads don't convert.
Absolutely.
And it's interesting because if you go down the marketing pathway, if you do it honestly, you're going to be forced to look in the mirror and say, why do we exist? Why does this matter? And all of a sudden, marketing becomes good service. So how do you diagnose that? So say I have a franchise brand, it's an emerging brand. They're going to spend the money on leads. They're going to spend money on sales training. But how do you get them to fix the product, service, delivery, and merge those?
I think that has to be from the beginning, right? Building a culture of service, a culture of caring, a culture of 5-star. If we don't build that from the beginning and the only focus is on sales, it's not going to turn out well long term. And so from training early on, onboarding, right? From the beginning, are we teaching our salespeople that it doesn't matter if we get a new customer? Can we keep the new customer? And we all know this, guys. I'm sure guys and gals, you know this, right? It costs 5 to 25 times as much to replace a customer than to keep one you have. But the mantra of this ABC, always be closing, all this old school stuff, right? It's got to go. It's always be keeping, right? We need to keep the clients we have, and it starts from the top. If you, as the leader, the owner, whomever, don't have that permeating through your culture and all you care about is sales and money and revenue, that's what's going to happen, man. And the message will get, again, misconstrued. You're not going to build long-term clients. Your retention level will be low. Your turnover will be high because that's not what salespeople want today. And it's weird that just that one little thing will affect so much in your business, but you won't even know that's what's causing, the low numbers.
Steve, I'm going to say some comments, and I don't know that there's necessarily a question of it, but I would love your opinion on this. So, here's the truth. The truth is there's a reason it's called the 1%. There's a reason Good to Great is a very, very small group of companies. And so, the reality is for your business or mine, and truthfully, I believe in everything you're saying. I would say of the deals that came in last year, maybe we didn't close 5 of them, but I don't want to waste my time talking to the ones that won't close. I want to talk to the right leads.
Right.
The point is, like, all of our businesses would be better if we focus on the 99%. We could have quite large businesses saying, don't be good at sales, go after leads. It's all about leads. And that's probably the toughest part, because even though everything you're saying is correct, and I fully embrace it, I will say majority of franchise brands that we talk to, you could say this and they could be like, hurrah, and we walk away from this and they're like, well, where are my leads? I need more leads. Where are my leads? And it's like, guys, it's all here. Like a great 25 great franchisees that are going to expand their portfolios by 1 unit every year. All of a sudden, now you get to 1,000 units with people who are scalable. Yet the mindset goes towards, I need 1,000 franchisees. So if you look at the brands that ultimately fail and don't make it in the definition of making it, there's a lot of them, and the 1% that do end up doing it right. So is it hard for your brain to comprehend on how many brands fail?
Yes.
And won't listen.
Yes. It's weird you brought this up, because this literally was one of my last Instagram and LinkedIn posts, right? About not spending time with the wrong people. Even Megan and I talked about this, right? We don't want to spend time with people that don't fit our avatar, right? That don't fit our model. And that's okay. I'm okay only working with ideal clients. And I'll ask everybody on here, because we've all had nightmare clients, nightmare customers, nightmare franchisees. We've all had them. Imagine if your entire business was only with your ideal client customer. What do you think your life would be like? It'd be pretty damn awesome. And that's what we focus on, right? We don't need everybody. We don't come from, the mindset of we need to sell everybody everything. Everyone that's interested in the franchise, give them one, right? We don't, it's just not the way that we teach. And I'll clean this up, but we've all heard the, boy, he's so good, she's so good, she could sell ice to an Eskimo. You guys have heard that, right? If you would sell ice to an Eskimo, that doesn't make you a great salesperson. That makes you an a-hole. Mm-hmm. But that's the stuff we see out there. And off topic too, because Charles was talking about this being an attorney. So guys, if you don't know, right, and maybe I'm wrong, Charles, 7 years to become an attorney?
No, it's not that long. And they're
attorneys
are only about 7, yeah.
4 undergrad, right. 3 law school, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to ask you what it costs, but those of you guys know median right now in this country is about 250 grand, okay? Without interest. Oh, and by the way, you got to pass a little test, I heard, right? So if you want to be an attorney, guys, it's 7 years of your life, study, $400,000 after interest if you don't pay it off on time, then you become an attorney and have a nice 6-figure salary.
Well, actually, though, if you want to be smarter than an attorney, which is very easy, just read Napoleon Hill.
Yeah.
Right? Because we should all grow up, and our parents should get. In fact, I coached the baseball team. I had all the kids on my baseball team. I had them for years, all read Napoleon Hill and stuff. Like, that's the real key, though, Steve. I mean, like, these are the life experiences. But I want to get back to your point about selling ice to Eskimos. It's an actual move, right?
Yeah.
But for the franchise brands, and here's where I worry on the emerging end. I see my clients bombarded every day with promises, spend money here, spend money there. Everyone wants that quick dollar. And what I really think is the most important thing is to build the foundation, right? Getting to your brand, getting to your brand story. And it's hard. So you get into that, everyone's focused on leads. And Nick's point, I think it's because everyone's trying to sell leads and sell something that's easy. And the profitable, sustainable path is not the easy one. Just can't buy this.
I'll give you a quick one. This is a real life case. This just happened 2 weeks ago. A new client we're working with. And when we do the sales DNA test, we actually make the salespeople record their value prop and their elevator pitch. So they have to record it as part of their sales DNA test. And then we collect all those value props, elevator pitches, and show them, right, to the owner, CEO, whomever, president. And when I was talking to this gentleman, and Neil, his name is, I said, Neil, you realize you got 6 guys and you got 6 different value props and you got 6 different elevator pitches. Your brand messaging is all over the place. And he said, Steve, I watched those and I had nightmares. So we're talking about brand. If you've got salespeople saying completely different things, off message, off value prop, it's a mess. And exactly what you're saying will kill them, because we've got to be on brand. Same message, same parts, same talk, same everything, if it's going to be congruent. So you're so right about that. But that's never taught. And again, the owners, the CEOs, people don't ever inspect what they expect. They don't even know what their people are saying, because they just want to get them more leads, give them more names. And they have no idea what their people are saying to their prospects and clients.
Well, the challenge is going to be is finding the right. It's got to start with the CEO that says, you know what, I'm gonna put everybody on notice that we're going to do this right. And unfortunately, there's so many variables that go into this. Whether, well, I don't want to be a mean person, so I don't want to call them out. And so there's so many complexities that there is a blueprint on how to be a great brand. You have your positioning defined, the why you, why now. You have a team that can reiterate it with comfort and make people feel confident in it. Like, the tools are there, but so many are afraid to do it. And I get it. Like, if I don't have the life experience that I have to this point, if you said, how do I get franchises? I would say, well, we need leads. Like, it makes sense. Yeah. So I understand how we get into this place. And here's the truth. Like, no matter how much I would love to take the entire industry, well, we'll take out the top 1%. So 1% of brands, we're talking about 40 brands are nailing it. Let's expand that out of 4,000. Let's just we'll call it 400. We'll say 10% are superior. Yeah. So now we got these 90% left. And I'd love to go shake them and say, there's a pathway to winning. We might have to get rid of the bottom 30% because the product franchise period, like, it was a bad idea. And there was some franchise consultant that said, of course I'll take your money and franchise your business. They're good at sales. Maybe those are the people that should be selling these deals. But, I want to shake the industry, but the truth is we probably are not going to get to that point, that ultimately, because of hurt feelings and all the other variables that go into it, we're going to have to start with baby steps. So when you're going out there and now you're not marketing, but you're searching for the right fit for you too. Yeah. How do you navigate that challenge?
It's you can't do the all or nothing, right? So even though we know there's a ton of people that we could help, again, I'll give you a real life case study. I built another training course that I teach AFLAC offices and AFLAC agents around the country. And most of the regional managers from AFLAC, they don't return my calls. And I'm not because it's me, but I was a guy that was number 1 in AFLAC in new account, number 1, 50,000 agents. And I was offering training for free to teach their entire teams everything I know for $0. 95% of them don't return my calls. Why? Ego. And so they want to be the voice. They want to be the name. They want to be the leader, but that's not a true leader, right? Leaders bring in other people who are good at things they are not good at. So I just stopped barking up the wrong tree, right? I just work with the people that I can tell within 1 minute if they have the right frame of mind, that they're a learner, right? That they want to improve and get better. And we don't need everybody. Like you mentioned, the bottom 90%. Our goal is just to take that kind of that middle and just help them improve by 10 or 20%. That's it. We don't make any phony promises. We don't make any, 10x your business, right? None of that garbage. We help them grow incrementally, slowly, so they can start building the systems and processes and sales training permeating through the culture of coaching. We have your back. We're here to grow together so we can grow a little bit at a time. And I would be willing to bet that everybody that's listening on here would probably take a 10 or 20% bump in revenue next year. I bet they'd take it. And I bet you they'd take the check, right? I would bet you they wouldn't rip it up. So it's not about this instant success. And to kind of go back to Charles's thing, right? If I want to be an attorney, 7 years. But people think, right, that they're going to be a successful business owner in 7 months. No. No business works like that, right? 2 to 5 years, 2 to 6 years in that range, right? Before you're profitable for most businesses. So I think that the level of expectation has to be set in the beginning. And I think most people were either sold a bill of goods or they were oversold, right, on how quick it was going to happen. But if you don't mix in learning how to sell your product, service, or whatnot, it's going to take a hell of a lot more than 2 years.
Steve, the challenge, and Charles mentioned it too, is, again, there's nothing that I disagree with you on this point. I would be the first one to say if I did. But the biggest challenge is you call it the snake oil that is sold in every business, that 10x your business, here's more leads, guaranteed deals, we can fix your problems. There's so many people out there willing to take money that it's hard to cut through the clutter and get to the top, right?
100%. And that's why, I mean, most of what we do is referral based. We just don't want to do that. I never wanted to do that. And listen, those guys and gals, listen, if you can do that to people and sleep at night, be my guest. But I'd rather keep my integrity and not mortgage my soul, right, to make money. And so those are the clients we look for. We look for businesses who want to exhibit honesty, integrity, humility, that don't care if they make $1 million less. That's not our client. So we work with less clients. That what's great, and I'm very humbled by it, is we get to pick and choose who we work with, which is pretty awesome. You know, we don't have to take in the people that we don't align with morally, value-wise. So those are the folks we want to help. And because they hang around those types of people, that's why we get referred into other types of companies just like that. And to your point, the people that are buying the snake oil, they're all wrapped up with those type of people, right? Who think owning a Ferrari is the key to life until it gets repossessed, right? So it's just, that's not the people that we want to work with or the businesses we want to work with. And I think Charles said it earlier, you can smell it in 2 seconds, right? If somebody's phony, right? A BS artist, you can smell it. And it's almost like we teach something called commission breath, right? Where you could smell on a salesperson, right? If it's the end of the quarter, end of the month, because they have commission breath. All they care about is the sale. And nobody likes that. Nobody. I haven't met one person that enjoys that experience. So that's what we do. And I guess I'm very lucky to say we have that ability.
And Megan's a great example. So, and I don't know if we just deal with a skewed audience, but there's some really good franchise professionals out there. Right?
A lot.
Salespeople, people that care.
A lot.
And do good, from founders to sales teams, development. And in many ways, I feel like many of them, they're super successful, but the ones that aren't, or we perceive as selling ice to Eskimo, it's not that they have bad intentions. I think it's the system they've been put into and don't realize there's an alternative path, right? And so like someone like Megan leading on this and having I think that's phenomenal. And we see a lot of that. And my frustration point too gets to, we'll have team meetings, and you're right. The best product, caring, saying the right things and doing the right thing doesn't always lead to business, but in time it does. So what I find interesting, I guess, putting it all together is there are those people out there, they haven't seen the other pathway.
Correct.
Bombarded by all these other things. I mean, I'm amazed. I'll go to a franchise expo, and if you want to talk about a crash course on bad selling, startup emerging franchisors who it's not their fault, they're thrown right into the mix of it, and they're not prepared for it. But everything that we've seen with this current challenge is education, information, and change has been accelerated by 5 to 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure if I'm being an optimist, but I feel like part of that change is a shift in the mindset we're talking about now. And it's going to foster that genuine, I'd like to believe after all of this, where lives have been challenged, businesses jeopardized, no one has time for the bullshit afterwards.
No.
We all want to be proud of what we're doing, and that includes all these development professionals.
It's already changing. We're already seeing it. Because you're right about there's so much noise out there. And what's funny is some of the virtual meetings I've done in the past couple of weeks, we did one on how to sell more tactfully during a pandemic. And we had like a 96% stay on rate, right? The webinar, the virtual meeting was 1 hour and 15 minutes. We had 96% of people stay on because it wasn't a pitch, right? It wasn't, oh, you can own a jet like me, or, it wasn't that stuff. It was just teaching real valuable tools for right now, May 15th, 2020, mid-pandemic, what we have to do to pivot, to change, to adjust our language, right? To get our head out of the sand and not use the same crap we were using even 3 months ago. So I see it changing. I think people now really are seeing above, right, all that other garbage. And they're really looking for somebody that can teach them how do we communicate better now. Because you guys know this, being remote, being virtual, everything we're doing now, if your communication skills aren't up to par, you're really going to struggle way more than you were before. When the economy's humming, people are taking orders, right? Again, it almost disguises all of the shortcomings and all the things that we're doing that aren't really effective. But now it's exposing, right, a lot of those folks, and you guys can see it yourselves. You can see everybody on Facebook selling their stuff and come to my thing, and oh, this course is 97% off. Like, you could see the I like to call them the charlatans, but you could see them begging for business right now, which is weird because I thought they had $10 million in a jet and mansions, right? So I think people are finally have been overwhelmed by all the false promises, all the fake ads, all the flashy jewelry and my trophy wife and all this kind of messaging. I think they're done with it. And I'm just happy to be a new voice, right? The one that believes you can have honesty, right? And sell tactfully and conscientiously and put people first. And that the key to life is not making sales, right? We know we have to earn a living, but to what degree, right? For us to mortgage, right, our integrity and our soul, I'm not going to do it. And we don't teach it.
Charles, final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many. One of the things, if you believe in your product and you believe it'll transform the life of someone in a positive way, big or small, it's really not sales, right? And
correct.
And so that's all aligned with Steve. I appreciate the philosophy. For me, the part that I'm super excited about, the amazing value you shared with us, Steve, and for Megan for the introduction. And I'm just happy to be a part of this community where I think we're all going to work together to elevate these standards. So, Steve, I appreciate it. I know there's a bunch of messages on here, and we'll connect you with a bunch of people too that have asked other questions.
Yeah, thanks, Megan, by the way. Yeah, I just, I want you guys to understand that life is not about selling. Okay, life's about helping other people. And one of the things I mentioned on stage not too long ago, and I don't even know why it popped into my head, and this is a good thought to leave with, is if you think about what's on a gravestone, typically on a gravestone you have born, died, right? And the name and so on. But I want you to think about if we didn't have any of that stuff on our gravestone and all we had was a number, just a number, and that's it, nothing else. And that number represented the amount of lives that you positively impacted in your time on earth. What would that number be? Because guess what? Everybody's going to see it. Is it going to be 1? And I know a lot of people, that's the only number that's on their gravestone. Or is it going to be hard to fit on there? So let's just think about impacting people's lives in a positive way. Whether or not they buy from you, it's irrelevant.
Yeah, appreciate that message, Steve. And my final thought is what you opened with is it's not whether the cup is half full or it's half empty. It's that you're holding a cup right now. And I think you're exactly right. Like the reality is this conversation ends up being somewhat bullshit because it's not going to have like purpose later on in life. It might help people guide on how to be a little bit more successful on how they perceive it. And it might help them find a little bit more happiness. But the reality is, I think, if this has, and it hasn't hit with everybody, if coronavirus has taught us anything, that life is short and delicate and out of our control, and make you appreciate some of the small things, like Charles talks about the meals and the bonding that he's had with his children. Like these are things that are bigger than sales. And now I will say this though, that's also sales too. Like when you're authentic and real and human and not selling the garbage BS and you're trying to be honest, like there are plenty of people that you will not sell because they're looking to be sold something. But the ones that you do bring into your organization, they're probably going to be legitimate, and those are going to make you more money than the other ones anyway. And if you can look at your picture, you have a shot at winning this war of life.
Absolutely.
So, gentlemen, appreciate the time. Thank you to our audience for listening and participating. Wish you both well. Steve, best of luck as you continue to navigate this. We'll be cheering for you.
Thanks, man. Thanks, everybody. See you guys soon. Thanks, Charles.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, man.